So many of you may be struggling with social or sexual anxiety, which means maybe you have a hard time walking up to someone and introducing yourself, or opening up on a date, or flirting with a woman, telling her something you find attractive about her, or taking a shot to invite her back to your place. What I want to teach you today is how to overcome these sorts of anxieties without actually even talking to anyone. And yes, that is possible. So what you have to understand is probably your biggest struggle is that you don't practice enough. And I get it. You're saying like, well, Nick, I don't really have opportunity to practice. I don't get maybe enough dates, or when I do, I don't want to mess things up. Or yeah, the whole reason why I can't practice like walking up to a woman and introducing myself is because I'm too scared to, and therefore I'm kind of stuck in this cycle. Well, I want you to think of practice as more than just doing something in the moment. I think that's what a lot of guys don't understand is they see these skills of being social and dating and only think about it in the exact minute they need to apply it. So they get on a phone call with a woman or a Zoom call, for example, and they're like, okay, I know I need to flirt with her. I know I need to give her like a real compliment, but then the stakes are too high and they have too much anxiety in that moment and they can't push through. But think about if that was applied to almost learning anything else in life. Like imagine if a basketball player only played basketball during games and never had practice beforehand. They just wouldn't be that good. Like most players will tell you that the practice is a huge part of why they're so good at something. The same thing with like working out. You can't just like pick up a bar and lift. You have to like practice form before like doing it in the moment and trying to do a full set. Your voice and your ability to express yourself is like an instrument. If you don't use it as often, you just won't be that good at it. So we need to start thinking about how can we use your voice more often and gain that practice in. Every time you convince yourself not to use your voice, whether it's to speak up to somebody or to share an opinion or take a shot, initiating conversation somewhere, you are missing out on valuable practice and also convincing your own mind that you can't do this, it's weird, you're not good enough, it's going to be awkward, and so forth. You have to get used to that pain period. You have to accept at first you're not going to be as smooth, it's going to be a little clunky, you're going to be thinking about your thoughts and trying to adjust your words, but over time it's going to get more natural. Like you're just going to start speaking out full sentences. You feel like you're getting loose, you have a little bit more fun with it, you're less in your head. And this is actually not just anecdotal experience. This is studied well in psychology. They use, for example, if you are struggling with some trauma around your family and maybe you haven't addressed some concerns with your father, it may be tough to say those things in the moment to him and face them. But what they'll do is they'll like pull up a chair, put like a doll or a photo that you can talk to and just try to speak openly and express yourself. And at first you're going to be like, oh, this is so uncomfortable and then you start to find the words and your brain doesn't really know the difference. It's just getting the feelings of like, okay, I have this thing I want to accomplish. I'm nervous at first saying this, but I am doing it and I am getting more comfortable and I have enough experience to be able to replicate that, especially once it happens in the moment. Let me give you some practical examples in your dating life. Let's say that you want to get better at complimenting a woman more flirtatiously. I'll actually do this exercise with men where we will pull up an Instagram profile or a few profiles and just have them look at the phone and try to actually convey what they found attractive about that person. So maybe it's, oh my God, your eyes are gorgeous. I can't help but get lost in them. Or, your playful attitude and your energy makes me smile. I really like people who've got that kind of positive mindset. And then we'll work our way up to being more forward and saying something like, hey, I love your smile. I think it lights me up every time I see it. And I find that really attractive. But at first, what will happen is a guy will take his phone and maybe the first 5 or 10 minutes, his hands will be trembling a little bit. He'll be super nervous. He'll be self-doubting. He's like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. And the words come out all clunky and kind of soft. And then 10 minutes later, all of a sudden he's able to say those same sentences through. Maybe they're still not stepping into it and they're like, hey, I think you're really, attractive because of X reason. And then maybe 10 minutes later, all of a sudden they're flicking through Instagram profiles and just like telling a girl like, hey, I love your sense of style. It's really cute. Hey, I love this about you, blah, 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 blah. They'll just all of a sudden, even if they had never practiced flirting with a woman boldly before, within like 20 minutes, they suddenly feel really, really comfortable with it and it translates immediately to the real world. I can apply this to a real story where I was in Barcelona with a client and a female coach I worked with. And we had him do this exercise at first. He was super hating it, never had tried this before. And then in 20 minutes, he was completely comfortable opening up and expressing himself. We took a break. We went out to go get some lunch. And on our walk through the city, we were all talking, and all of a sudden we look over and we see him peel off. He walks up to a woman, tells her he finds her hair really pretty and beautiful. She smiles and lights up. They talk for a few seconds, and then he comes back to us. And again, this is something he never had done before in his life, but just doing it alone and getting comfortable with the way he sounds built those patterns in his brain, gave him a little bit of that experience and confidence, and then he was able to actually walk up to a beautiful girl on the street and say that. So you could do that with compliments, but let's think about, introducing yourself to somebody and knowing what to say. That's what guys say, oh, I don't know what to say. Knowing what to say comes from having an opinion in the moment, or being observant, being mindful of the world around you and wanting to share that with people. So when I'm out and guys see me just be able to walk up to someone and start a conversation, or walk up to a woman and introduce myself, they think I have some magical skill that just I was born with. What they don't realize is I spent a lot of time walking around in the world, really taking in and being like, oh man, that girl's outfit is awesome. It looks like a Monet painting. Or man, I wonder if this cronut thing is worth it and worth staying in line. And just connecting to my own thoughts and feelings, and then practicing it out loud. While I'm walking and I'm away from people, I'll just say those things under my breath. Even if you wanted to have in headphones, you could go sit on a park bench after walking around for a while and just talk about the environment, talk about what you see to yourself. If you're uncomfortable doing this in public, you can walk around for 30 minutes, go back home and kind of reflect on what you saw that day for 5 minutes and just speak out loud, and do this a lot. And so now when I see somebody, I'm not in the moment what do I say to this person? And I'm trying to come up with a line. I already am present in the world. I have thoughts. I'm curious about people. So maybe I see them completely blazing it through on a trail, and I want to know how long they've been trail running and what does it take to get there. It's coming from honest observation that I've already practiced out loud. I'm not talking about 5 times or 10 times. I'm talking about spend a week or two walking around in the world and speaking out loud dozens of times, if not hundreds of times. Then guess what? You're going to get used to the way you sound. You're not going to be like, oh man, I sound so stupid when I try to talk about new things with people. And then all of a sudden you'll be around people and you'll have those same thoughts pass through, and it's just replicating what you've already done 100 times. And that resistance gets so much easier. Another example is being able to ask forward, intimate questions on a date. Men will go on 1, 2, 3 dates with a woman, and they'll never get into romance, love, dating, sex, or attraction. And the subjects that often are really fun, but also build that intimacy and the arousal between each other. And again, if you've never practiced asking a sexualized question, and then you're in front of a beautiful girl, and this is the one date you've had in a month, yeah, of course you're going to have an almost impossible time doing that. But if you had sat at home and interviewed yourself and said the questions out loud, pull up a profile of a woman that you're going on a date with, look at photos on Instagram. If that helps to have a visual, fantastic. So look at that person and say, what do you find most attractive in somebody? Or what was your first kiss like, and do you remember it? How important do you think intimacy is to a relationship? What secretly is something that turns you on about a man that most people wouldn't guess? These questions seem daunting and terrifying, and you can't even think about having those words escape your mouth while you're with a woman. But if you practice it beforehand and you sit there and you ask those questions out loud, and then maybe you answer them yourself, not what do you find attractive in a man, but you flip it and say, what do you find attractive in a woman? And you talk, guess what? You're starting to accept your sexuality. You're telling your subconscious it's fine to talk about these things and to get into these subjects. And then all of a sudden you'll realize, now I'm on a date, this curiosity bubbles up in me. I've done this 10 times. I can do this right now, no problem. I just have to do what I've already done a lot of times. This is why people taking theater and improv practice all sorts of social games. It's why public speakers stand in front of the mirror and recite their speeches beforehand. It is so crucial to get as many reps in as possible, even if you're not in front of somebody. And once you get comfortable just thinking about things you want to say in the environment and practicing it by yourself, you could even start tying it to real world semi-practice, where you're sitting on a park bench, you see a woman from afar away that you find attractive, and I want you to look in her direction, obviously so she doesn't see you, okay? And just say out loud what you'd actually want to convey to her. And again, your brain is like, oh, I'm getting this stimulus of a beautiful woman. I am expressing myself. Great. I'm getting experience in building self-confidence. So again, if you want to get better at talking to women, go spend 2 weeks talking out loud about the world and your feelings and your thoughts and your curiosities about it. If you want to get better at getting into intimate questions with women, Google sexual questions to ask a girl on a date, and then go through them and practice them in the mirror. Practice them looking at an Instagram profile or whatever. If that's introducing yourself, if that's asking more bold questions, if that's opening up about yourself about more personal subjects, there is no such thing as too much practice. If you lead with courage first, the confidence will come after. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, subscribe below. Don't forget to hit the notification bell and comment below if there's anything else you want to get better at expressing. I'm happy to give you guidance and give you different types of exercises that you can apply in the real world.